A warm welcome to all of you gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll hand over to our moderator, Ms. Satish, to take this discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Anisha, and happy to take over from you. I wish to see my panel members on the screen. I see Parag, Mayank, and yeah, Srinivasan as well. And maybe I just wait for a moment to also see Ramamoorthy. Yeah, well. Okay, so we all are, I think, complete now. So thank you very much, my panel member colleagues, for joining this session. The session is very, very rightly themed as Reconsider, Reset, and Rejuvenate, and particularly in the context of the rejuvenating financial transformation. And that comes in the current times, which is actually now closer to normalcy, right? We are in the current times, which is more closer to normalcy than closer to pandemic. And in this times, if you see the emphasis which was there in the past about work from home is actually changing. It's changing its shape. It's changing its focus. And actually, there are sort of industries and sectors considering, should we move from work from home to work from office, because now we are going closer to normalcy. However, irrespective of whichever time it would prevail, a situation of 100% work from office or 100% work from home looks now unimaginable, because the experiences and the positives that we have witnessed about work from home in the last couple of years. Now, one thing which has not changed, irrespective of the scenario change, work from home or work from office, is about the automation and digitalization. The automation and digitalization has evolved much faster than in the past, and it would constantly evolve also in the future, irrespective of whichever regime we are going for, because it has planted the truths, planted the sort of roots so deep, and it has reflected, apart from connectivity, to the efficiency and effectiveness, that it is going to actually change the shape of the performance of the organizations much different than ever before. However, how we actually address this opportunities and the potential of the automation and digitalization, that matters a lot. There is a very popular saying, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic and yesterday's mindset. So in the times of automation, if we work and digitalization, if we work with yesterday's mindset and yesterday's logic, that is not going to work. We have to work with the futuristic mindset and futuristic logic. And therefore, most important, as I mentioned, is evolution, is the transformation of this automation, which is constantly evolving. And second is the futuristic approach, futuristic mindset. I give a couple of examples of our own company, and we are in manufacturing business. The transformation about the automation that we undertook in procure-to-pay area, for example, has yielded enormous amount of results, apart from ensuring the flexibility of working. Our employee can work either from office or from home, but can deliver the same quality output, same level of efficiency and error-free, because of this end-to-end solution of procure-to-pay. So right from receipt of the invoice, as soon as the invoice is landed in the company, the invoice is converted into electronic form through ICR, OCR technology. And thereafter, the entire process of invoice verification, posting, process, payment run, and the payout happens automatically as per the defined due dates. Similarly, there are sort of automations that we have pursued in the area of success factors in HR. So right from recruiting to onboarding to annual appraisals of our employees, to career development, payroll processing is entirely automated. And in the past, if you have to track back employees' track record, right from recruitment to appraisals over the period of time, it was impossible because of the physical documents and the storage of the documents and no traceback of the informations. Now it's damn easy because of the automation via the success factors. We also have another example, which is digital approval workflow. So there is no manual or the paper-based sort of approval that is happening. The approval is entirely digital, and therefore, not only the process and the whole sort of approval process is becoming faster, it is becoming more and more efficient as well. So in this context, there have been quite a good amount of focus and the transformation towards this automation as well as digitalization. And in this context, it would be good that I invite my colleague Srinivasan. And Srinivasa, it would be good to actually also have your views about the intelligent automation. We have been talking a lot about intelligent automation, and there have been great results out of this. It would be good to know from you, what are your views about intelligent automation? What are the key tools that you use? Also, your own sort of views about working from home, because I know you are from healthcare industry. And unlike all other industries who talk a lot and practice a lot about work from home, in your case, it was actually all the time work from office, right? Or maybe more work from office. So it would be good to know from you about this aspect as well. And there have been quite many operational efficiencies that would have been realized also in your experience. So it would be good to know your views about which sort of intelligent automations that you have introduced, your own views about the working from home, and on the top of this is the operational efficiencies that you have gained, and also ensuring that there is a data security.
Great. Thanks, Satish, and hello to all my fellow panelists. Let me give a quick background about the business I come from. I work for a healthcare company specializing in oncology. We are spread across India in 26 centers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 centers. Whatever I'm going to say is practical example stuff that I've handled. And so that is what I intend to share with the rest of the participants and take some insights from them as well. Any transformation, it involves 3 aspects. I call it as PPT. It's not PowerPoint. It is people, process, technology. I think these 3 things will have to combine together to ensure that, the transformation is driven in the right place. From a people point of view, you got to have all your internal stakeholders in place so that, they are aligned with the overall objectives. From a process standpoint of view, your governance, your controllership environment, those will have to be in place in order to ensure that, the transformation process takes place effectively. And last but not the least, the technology aspect of it. What applies to it? There is nothing called one size fits all. It should kind of fit into your way of working, your way of business. It should make sense to the business. I think if these 3 things come together, you are into the right path of transformation. That's point number 1. In a hospital environment, I have a colleague from Manipal as well. In a hospital environment, the key aspect is patient centricity. Okay, I come from, as I mentioned, I come from an oncology business, and correct treatment at the right point in time is of paramount importance to the patients. Okay, even missing 1 cycle of treatment could have an impact on their average lifespan, basically. Imagine in a COVID environment, cancer patients at different stages were hesitant to come to the hospital because they were not aware of what is in store for them. From this point of view, it was extremely critical as a business, to reach out to those patients and ensure that, they get the treatment of time. So from a patient centricity point of view, it was extremely critical for us to have the right set of data right set of technology platform that would throw up this information so that we are able to reach out to the patients instead of patients coming to us. In a normal atmosphere, they would have walked into the hospital, got their treatment and walked out. Here we were in a reverse situation. We had to go to the patient. For that, technology played a very, very important role. The data that we had, the information we had about those patients, it was extremely critical because we knew what patient required what treatment at what point in time, and we were at the doorsteps of the patient to ensure that that treatment happened, and we were able to attend to the patients actually. The key aspects, 2-3 things that I wanted to kind of bring about from my experiences. This pandemic taught us a few things. You got to have the availability of right data at the right time, okay? And the second area, which we really felt that it is extremely critical, is how is that as an organization we need to focus on cash? How is that we can leverage on that? What kind of information we need to generate so that the cash is king mantra is followed very philosophically? And how is that as an organization we are able to kind of deploy our resources on the right kind of assets, on the revenue generating assets. The point was we said need to have versus nice to have basically. So from that point of view, it was very critical from a transformation standpoint to kind of explore all these aspects basically. One of the areas which helped in terms of driving some of these agenda items, there were a lot of things that happened, but I'm going to articulate 3 or 4 specific things that we worked on. One is from a finance organization perspective, we embarked on the shared service concept. We accelerated the process actually. When I say shared service, it's just not finance shared service. It's about the business shared service center, wherein we could kind of integrate various functions so that we could accelerate the process and thereby bring in the transformation, ensure that all the data is available in a central location and we are able to leverage on it very quickly. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is that, we embarked on value creation activities from a transformation point of view. When I say value creation activity, how is that we focus on the productivity aspects of it, the efficiency aspect of it, and most importantly, the digitization aspect of it. We did employ external counsels for that to kind of drive this agenda so that, they are able to articulate what the other industry does. So, they can dovetail with our industry and, can make a good sense out of it, which will drive this agenda. An important area where technology played an important role in the transformation, as I mentioned, we operate in 26 centers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 centers. From Mumbai to Cuttack and Ranchis and Hublis of the world, we operate basically. From a business standpoint of view, it's very important that I benchmark myself as to how good or how bad I am. There are 2 ways of doing. I can go to outside place and compare myself, but with the amount of data I have internally within the 26 centers, I felt it is very important if I do a good job of my internal benchmarking, compare my data and see how it is going to, how am I performing within various centers. That's a good enough start point. So from that point of view, from a transformation stand, what we did was we kind of standardized all the basic definition, which are the key drivers, the KPIs of the business across all the centers in our hospital sector. In other words, Czechoslovakia is split in the same way in all those 26 centers and not in different ways, basically. So we ensured that common definition, common standardization is driven, and then we were able to kind of look into it on a periodic basis and in good internal benchmarking that helped us to kind of understand who is performing well, who needs to perform well, what are the areas which are lacking. So those were some of the areas that we were able to focus on, help drive the business in the rightful way. Third point, important aspect, I talked about cash is king. What I mean by cash is king, everybody knows about it. The thing is, somewhere, this pandemic has kind of taught us as to kind of ensure that, as I mentioned, put it in the revenue generating assets, avoid to a large extent risk taking, because you do not know what is in store for the future, basically. So when I say cash is king, one area which we did was, if you look at our payer mix, the business mix that we have, about 20% of our business comes from the government. Very fact, we operate from tier 2, tier 3 centers. So it is very important getting cash from the government business. My fellow colleague from Manipal knows about it. And getting money from the government is always a challenge. It's always a challenge. So we were able to kind of put a tool that could interface with the portals of the government. Thereby, we were able to monitor at least, what point in time, what money is likely to come. At least that discipline we were able to kind of ensure. So that way, we were able to monitor that. Technology helped in driving that agenda. This and another example that I want to give is from my previous organization. I work for a multinational company. One of my responsibility was to kind of, drive the global cash collection every quarter. When I say drive global cash collection, the collection is to the tune of something like $8 to $9 billion every quarter. That's the kind of money we are talking about. So that had centers across about 40 to 45 countries in different parts of the world. Our job was to ensure that money comes in from all those centers. It was a mammoth work because, it was an IT industry, it's a mammoth work. So what we did was to deploy bots. And, imagine, put it in a very simple way. Imagine a headless robot sitting in the center of the room, surrounded by 25 terminals, okay, each representing one of those geographies. The bot was able to capture all those data in terms of which customer to target, okay, how much money to target, and it was able to give me real-time information in terms of how to chase, whom to chase, at what point in time to chase. That really helped in driving that cash collection agenda, and we were fairly successful in driving that and ensure that we achieved our target basically. So that is another example that I can give in terms of how technology helped in driving this cash collection point of view as well. Business is changing. Business is changing. I was talking to somebody. I come from a hospital environment. How many of you know about virtual surgery? What do I mean by virtual surgery is an operation is performed in a tier 3 location, but a tier 1 doctor is virtually present next to the patient who is getting operated, is giving instruction to those other doctors that are present around the surgery table to tell how the surgery has to be performed. That is the extent to which technology has penetrated into this business. And it is equally important for the finance organization to keep pace with this kind of rapid change in technology and ensure that we are able to keep pace with the business. I think the way I would put it is the CFOs will have to think like CEOs and ensure that they are able to implement the larger aspects of the business to leverage technology, digitization in such a way that your title will no longer be called as Chief Financial Officer, it would be called as Chief Value Creator. That's what transformation can do. That's what technology can do. I stop here.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, Srinivasa. I think very well said. And by giving the example of cross-functional shared service center, and I think if we bring this a reality, it not only ensures automation, it actually ensures overcoming this cultural demarcations, these cultural silos of finance, logistics, operations. Likewise, when you have cross-functional shared service center, you can definitely overcome these cultural silos. And the example of this, technology intervention in surgeries is a very good example. If it can happen in surgeries, why not in finance? I think it can happen even yesterday, right? So very well said. Let me just move to Parag. And Parag, I wish to actually come to you from Srinivasa because you are in the same sector. You are in the healthcare sector as well. And artificial intelligence has actually gained a lot of momentum across the sectors. I am sure it would be in healthcare sector as well. And as Srinivasa gave the example of some of them, it would be good also to know from you, what is your experience about this artificial intelligence, particularly in the context of also the digitalization of the documents and the evolving automation during COVID times and now even in current times as well as in the times to come?
Sure. Thanks, Satish, and thanks, Srinivas, for your inputs. So first, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Parag Agarwal. I head business finance and digital transformation for finance department in Manipal hospitals. We have 23 hospitals across India, and we are headquartered at Bangalore. So Now, about this transformation. So there are, this is a very broad term, and in business, definitely there are so many things which has this transformation. Nowadays, robots are doing surgeries, and there are WhatsApp chats, and there are so many artificial intelligence in entire area. But let me limit myself to finance transformation here. So if I tell you about my last 3-4 years of experience about this transformation journey in finance department, so I would say that we can split the problem into two parts. One, there are certain problems which can be handled with I would say predefined, pre-built tools. So there are many softwares available for those problems. Like I'll give an example. For accounts payable, as Satish rightly said about this P2P process. So earlier we were processing all the invoices at all 23 locations. Now, currently we have a central hub at Bangalore, and all the hospitals are submitting their invoices through scan copy at center, and we are processing all the invoices at Bangalore center. For this, we have a point solution pre-built tool, which can be customized to some extent for your need. And this is inbuilt with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it converts the scan copy of invoice into text, and then it does the three-way match. It does all those things and check, and finally it comes to you for a final vetting. Even that can be automated, but for certain reasons we have not done that. But yes, you can activate, and it can simply post the bill. This is very important. Why? Because as Satish said about digitization of documents, since last 3 years, we are handling our audit centrally. We are not asking our units to retrieve those documents and submit it to auditors. Auditors are coming to HO. We are providing all the documents and for documents and provide it to auditor. Auditor can simply complete and all the queries can be resolved here. So they need not to travel to 23 locations for our audit. This is the beauty of this digitization of documentation. And it is quickly available. So if I need something, I need not to wait for a day to get response on my mail, which I will send to my unit. I can simply log into SAP and I can get all those documents upfront. So that is one thing. But we know that all the problems in finance cannot be handled, and tools are not available, ready available tools are not available for each and every problem. And that's where this bot comes into the picture. Bot is like a clean slate. You define your problem, you define the process, how you want to do that, and it will do it for you. So like I will give you 2-3 examples. We had one problem about bank reconciliation. We were doing this at month end, and there were around 80 plus bank accounts which we were having. Reconciling all those accounts at month end was a tedious task. And even frequency of 30 days was not a very great frequency, and it always gives us a discomfort that any error on day one will be highlighted after 30 days. So what we did, we used this bot for bank reconciliation. So what is happening, we are getting our bank statement in email. So at late in the night, Robo logs into SAP, downloads all the bank our statement from SAP. It downloads all the statements from email, reconcile it, and send the final bank reconciliation to respective unit finance heads for review. If they want to comment anything, they can comment. Robo will accept those inputs. Otherwise, it will keep doing this on day-to-day basis. So that's the beauty. So each morning we open our mailbox, and there is one bank reconciliation available in that. Second problem was about this, whatever we collect from our customers, allocation of that, because we might be having 100 bills, and finally we get one payment in consolidation. And apart from that, we will get invoice details in email through Excel sheet or something. So allocation of that was also a time-consuming task. And again, here we used this Robo to do that reconciliation for us. So there are so many activities in this area which you can define. The only precaution which we have to take is that our process should be predefined and should be stable. We cannot have, like I gave you example of bank reconciliation. Now, if my bank recon is getting reconciled, account is getting reconciled daily, and I am not punctual on my bank account entries in SAP, what Robo will reconcile? It will throw all these transactions as exception. So if I'm structural, if I'm doing all my transactions punctually and properly, in that case, this technology can help you a lot. And it will give you ROI also. Sometimes we say that these kind of things don't give ROI. So I'll give you an example like this accounts payable centralization. So earlier my invoice processing cost was, per invoice cost was 150 plus per invoice. Right now we are processing at around 52 rupees per invoice as our cost. So my cost has gone 1/3 with centralization. And apart from that, my audit efforts have been reduced significantly. So all those things actually help a lot, and definitely this technology has a ROI. Yes, Satish, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Parag. You gave very good example of bots. And actually, my own experience with our company deploying at least bots is that it makes a hell lot of a difference. The first and foremost, it works for 24/7. You don't have to give a sick leave or a casual leave to a bot. Second thing, it is error-free. There is absolutely no chance of error. And third is that it is interconnected. So from a first process to the next process to the last process, there is complete connectivity. And thereby you achieve end-to-end automation. And this is the actually main focus area in many of the sectors currently, that when we talk about automation, initially automation was actually focused on converting the manual things to automation, but not so much on the interconnections and end-to-end connectivity. But with bots, this is realized. We have experience in procure-to-pay. It is working absolutely fine, and it is working. Actually, it gives you very, very solid results. So continuing that journey of having the bots and RPAs, I like to invite Ramamoorthy. And Ramamoorthy, I think I wish that we now have this discussion from having here both the gentlemen from health sector to now FMCG in Tesco. I think you are with Tesco. Of your own views about RPA, how you use in your daily life, what is your experience, and is it that only the end-to-end automation, but also certain other type of automations? When I say end-to-end procure-to-pay, I am meaning about largely physical material purchases and thereby having the automation. But there are other areas like expense automation. We call in our company, for example, as extra, the expense and travel management automation. So you have some such experiences, and I wish to have your views about RPAs and expense automations and the other type of digitalization that you wish to say.
Sure, Satish. Thank you very much. Just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Ramamoorthy. I'm the CFO of Tesco Bangalore. And we are a global business services that caters to Tesco Group, and we have presence in about 3 different geographies around the world. So first and foremost, I think let me come back and state that what is the most common use for an RPA? In an ideal environment, you would want an IT system that can do an end-to-end automation seamlessly from across multiple systems and stacks. And as most CFOs, you would recognize that is nirvana. That practically never happens because there is no one system that can solve everything. Or if the system, if you want such a system, it is so expensive, CFOs being CFOs rejected themselves. So what actually happens is you have an RPA which can do a simpler interface between 2 systems or sub-processes or activities in a low-key kind of solution where you can have the same bot do same license to multiple activities, thus increasing your effectiveness. Now, you asked a question in terms of how many, what kind of bots can we have? Within my broader business, we have at this point in time north of over 150 bots working on various different activities, ranging from as simplistic as accounts payable to as complex as FP&A. Obviously, the scale and complexity of each bot is very, very different. To give you a very simple example, let's say in your accounts payable activity, we have a touchless OCR system, which does an automatic matching of the invoice versus the required demand. But there are exceptions which get raised, right? How do you handle those exceptions? One way could be is to have one of our colleagues take a look at it and respond to it, or where the exception is largely looks like to be in our favor and there are exceptions to it, we have created a bot that automatically automatically identifies this, posts the debit note, and then goes ahead and automatically processes the transaction. Again, improving the speed, improving the simplicity, because it's a simple rules-based activity. Satish, you talked about expense management, right? There are a lot of cases before. We have recently implemented Concur, right? But before Concur had come in, a lot of our colleagues had to upload their invoices, hard copies, soft copies, etc., onto a system, and someone was doing it manually. So we had the images taken in a electronic environment. We had a system, we could interface it. So that's where a bot came in. It copied it, pasted it, and made life easier. And we have now reached a stage in Tesco where bots are getting retired because now we have a better end-to-end systems, right? I can talk to you an example of, let's say, if you do a month-end supplier reconciliation. How do you do a supplier reconciliation? You have your statement, you have a supplier statement. Typically, somebody would take a look at it manually, or like a bank reconciliation. So we created a bot that would take a look at both the inputs, compare the specific dates, and then identify what are the exceptions and flag that exceptions out. And if they, again, exceptions are timing differences, then that will automatically eliminate it. Otherwise, you then have to deal with exceptions. So I've just given you 3 very simplistic examples, but many of our colleagues who have worked, let's say, in FP&A or in reporting functions would know that you have multiple systems with multiple data sources. You have a system for your financial data. I'm sure in the hospitality industry, Srinivasan would completely agree with me. You have a system which is financial data, another system which contains the number of customers, the patients who have come in, another system which says, when did you buy from various transactions? So you have all of the data. And we as CFOs, and when we talk to our business stakeholders, nobody wants to say, go to one system for one transaction, other for other. You want to integrate it. So what do you do? So if you want to build data from different systems, then RPA has become a very ripe example, where you pull information from multiple strands. Again, these are rule-based activities. Anything which is rule-based, anything which is repetitive in nature, are very ripe candidates for an RPA deployment. I mean, RPAs are such that you not only you can use an RPA for doing your financial reporting in the morning, and the same license can be used for an FP&A in the evening because they're rules-based. But I think from a digitization perspective, I think it will be a big fallacy if you assume that RPAs are the only go-to solution. To me, one of the solutions we are now trying to implement is a solution what we call journal automation, wherein at the end of every month, all CFOs know that we have to post in multiple journal entries. So we are now right now in the process of implementing a journal automation solution, which takes data from multiple systems based on the rules and the logic that we have now defined. It basically starts posting month-end entries on its own, and any exceptions get flagged out. So our aspiration is, if you want to do faster close, you have to either simplify your activities over end-to-end or end-to-end system integrations, or you need to have a solution like the journal automation solution that we've got that interfaces between both. What these automation tools also deliver is not only, like Satish said, accuracy, timeliness, but more importantly and much, much more invaluable is time. It saves our finance professionals time, which can then be used to give the businesses a lot more commercial insights. So you have solutions like that. One solution which I'm extremely proud of within Tesco is we all send reports to everybody, right? Each of our business functions, we send reports every single month. But that was how we were doing it 10 years ago. Today is a world on demand, right? When you want a YouTube video, you can get a YouTube video. You want a Netflix, you can get a Netflix. But if you want to see month-end performance of 4 months ago, we have no means of doing that. So within Tesco, we built a digital financial analyst, which is basically a chatbot solution, which eventually in the future will be voice enabled, which gives the users information on demand, anytime, any place, anywhere they are there. So that my team's time to answer to those emails or send those reports get saved, and we are actually able to partner with the business to help move the needle on the business. I could give you another example of a SharePoint-based automation solution. All of us will have expense approvals or some form of approval systems, right? Many cases in these days, most approvals happens on email, or in some organizations happen a systemic approach. CapEx investments. So we have now developed a workflow-based solution which completely digitizes it. We are making our end users more capable of helping themselves. So we save our time and bandwidth and focus on those elements where we can make a significant differentiator. So I would just leave this August panel to think through is, when we talk about digitization, don't just restrict yourself to RPAs. RPAs are a very good solution and can solve many of our problems. But that's not the panacea for all ills. There are a lot of other solutions out there. And what you need to pick up for your respective organization is one that is tenable, one that is cost effective, and most critically, one which your teams can understand.
Absolutely. I think you said it so well, Ramamoorthy, that that RPA is not the solution to all your problems. Fortunately, there are low-cost solutions available, RPAs available, bots available, and those are actually very much helpful. But there could be some complex and cost-prohibitive RPAs as well, and those may not be actually necessary for some of the companies who can actually work with other alternates and good solutions. Now, having actually heard you and also other panel members about the automation, about the bots, about the way actually the whole sort of journey towards automation is progressing, if I put on the top of everything the comment from Srinivasa that cash is king, and if I add a little twist from my side, cash was a king, cash is a king, and cash will remain a king. So in finance community, as we all actually have experienced and have been focusing, cash will remain a king. So on one side, we have to focus strongly on the business. Other side, we have to ensure that there is consistent progression in terms of productivity, in terms of efficiency, and thereby automation. So the role of CFO in this context is becoming more and more diversified. And in that context, it would be very good to know, Mayank, from you, and you are actually from the similar industry as I belong. You are with Schneider Electric Infrastructure. So it would be very good to know from you about the diversified role of CFOs and how this can help enhance the decision-making process. What are the opportunities? What are the challenges under the context of other panel members who talked about the automation?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Satish, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just to introduce myself. I'm Mayank Holani, CFO for Schneider Electric Infrastructure Limited, which is part of Schneider Electric Group entities in India, and the only listed entity which we have here. So, and this entity primarily deals with the engineer-to-order products of medium voltage electrical efficiency equipments. And I'll be talking a bit, different from the earlier speakers have spoken. And I think business never gets to a point which is ideal model, right? And the world is changing so fast that even in a business that you think is stable and predictable, the operating model needs to continuously evolve, just given what technology is doing. And this is what we as CFO needs to challenge almost every day, to ask our companies, our organizations' business model, whether it is fit for purpose today, and more importantly, whether it is fit for the future, right? And if we look at in terms of the whole organization, among the members of top management, CFOs are probably the best positioned person to challenge the businesses. They are independent from operations, and they are the only ones, apart from the CEO, who have a comprehensive vision of the company. So the role of a company is clearly not just a role of CFO is not just a business partner, but also a business challenger. And though it's not the easiest part of the job to do. And while what happens is, everybody keeps coming to the US CFO for approvals, for automations or new rules, you have to strike a right balance between your priorities and what is the best to do and the kind of return on investment. As Ramamoorthy was talking, whether it's a repetitive tasks or a unique thing. Like in our industry, what we do is almost 80-90% of businesses is specific to the order. So you have a more bigger challenge in terms of that. And if I take example of our company, which primarily deals in ETO, the pricing environment is always challenging. You have on the one hand low cost competitors, while on other hand you need to adjust to the interest of clients. So they need software, services, and your technology. And when the deals are decided on L1 basis, right? In most of the cases in this kind of business. So you, on one side, you have overcapacity in the market, and where even to break even, competitors fight for price, right? And to keep their factories running. Sometimes you end up setting up for the second best price, right? You have to make a balance between whether you keep your capacity unutilized or you little bit relax your margin target to strike a balance between your competitivity or in terms of price and the capacity utilization. Now, moving on from that, as a CFO, we also have to be instrumental in launching performance and restructuring plans. We have to set up partnerships, allocating the money for automation, for R&D, for manufacturing investments, right? And compliance is also a big part of CFO's role. It has been earlier also, but now the way regulators are moving around the world and making the managers personally liable. As CFO of especially a listed company, you have to be very, very strictly governed to have compliance on top of whatever you do. Now, from financial analytics perspective, to support decisions, CFOs have to drive high performance. And the information is power. And today's finance teams have the responsibility and mandate to rapidly generate and analyze financial information, which is where all this automation and the bots and RPAs come into play. Because the business leaders of today want the finance professionals to support their business decisions, to go behind the numbers, not just saying, okay, your sales grew by X%, your margin improved by Y%. What happens behind that, right? So the finance teams need to spend less time on analyzing the numbers or, just reporting the numbers, which can be done through automation. And they have to spend more time and more mind on, analytical processes, which simultaneously reduces the effort they spend on the transactional processes. And as a business, you get more visibility, more clarity on what's going well and what's not going well. Now, we also have a big role to play in terms of any business transformation, and we have the ideal opportunity for that. And without CFO's leadership, certain key elements of transformation are likely to receive a short shrift. And when transformations are planned, it's important that CFOs step up to play a broader role that includes modeling of desired mindsets and behaviors in transforming the finance function itself. Because you need to lead by example. If you tell everyone that, okay, you reduce cost, but you keep on spending, then it is not going to cut the ice. Now, many times, turnaround initiatives could create great value, never get to the company's bottom line. Problem could be just poor execution, right? So finance functions have to innovate and stretch beyond the normal expectation and set the same level of aspirational goals as they are doing for rest of the organizations, which increases your credibility and influence. Also, we have to spend, while we have to spend a lot of time on traditional and specialty finance roles, but now more than this, we are required to spend time on strategic leadership, organizational transformations, and performance management. And we, as a CFOs, we have to assert proactiveness and strategic leadership. We have to adopt investors' mindset and also embrace technological advances. So it would conclude by saying a CFO's role has broadly 4 faces: that of a steward, of operator, strategist, and a catalyst. And we can be vehicle for change within an organization. So we are nowadays responsible for much more than the routine or standard finance activities like risk management, regulatory compliances, M&A execution, and even in some cases, IT, cybersecurity, and digitization. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very well said, Mayank. Thank you so very much. Very crisp and overall summary. If I have to just give one word to what you said is co-piloting. I think if CFOs do the role of co-piloting, I think everything that we have been talking about since beginning in this session, be it transformation via automation and digitalization, or be it focusing on the business, or be it making the finance function more vibrant by ensuring that business continuity remains by focusing on cash, I think this would address and in a way ensure that all the aspects are appropriately looked into. So be a great co-pilot And with that, we have actually now paucity of time. We are actually having very good ideas from all the panel members and very good sort of a speech that they have laid out today in this session. But since we are running out of time, I have to now go back and hand over to Amisha. So Amisha, back to you. But before that, I like to express my sincere thanks to all my panel members for sharing your valuable thoughts, and I'm sure that would be of some use to the participants. So back to you, Anisha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satish ji, for conducting the discussion, and a big thank you to Ramamoorthy, to Mayank ji, to Srinivasan, and to Parag for joining us today and sharing with us their perspectives on how the finance departments and companies are refashioning themselves for the times to come, and the additional responsibilities that are falling on the CFO's shoulder, how to fulfill all of those with aplomb. Thank you all for joining us.